Hello and welcome to Sin and Steel, the heavy metal podcast. I'm your host, Serotonin, and we're joined by Marianne and Luke of Melbourne melodic metal band In Eden Slain. Thank you both for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
So you guys are here to tell us all about the debut Sorrow and Prevail. As well as the upcoming release shows. But before we dive into that, I really would love to know a little bit more about you both and the band itself. So what are your backgrounds, your musical interests, and how did everyone come together to form In Eden Slain?
I might kick that one off because I've been in the band for the longest.
Yep.
It kind of started off as a project that is absolutely not what it turned out to be. So our founding bass player ended up making a post just on one of the local groups looking for some people to contribute to a recording project. So I responded to the ad and so did Raph, our other guitarist. Yeah, and that's how we met and we just really got along. We became great friends and we started playing her music, the bass player, and we started playing some other stuff and just jamming for a while, and then it eventually evolved into something else. We had like a very brief stint where we were kind of maybe more of a doom project.
Wow.
Kind of like went down that pathway for a little while we were jamming with other band members.
Yeah.
And then eventually we got a message from Ryan, our drummer, on Facebook, who wanted to join our band. And it was really just hunting around for Luke, who was the missing piece, until we really became, I guess, what Eden Slain is now. Was really when Luke joined, I would say, which was just pre-pandemic.
Yeah, towards the end of 2019, like October, November or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's really when I would say the band was formed.
That's awesome. And it sounds like there was quite the shift in what you were doing beforehand. What sort of background does everyone have and what sort of musical interests?
Very eclectic, which I think is reflected probably in the sound of the music.
Yeah.
I come from, I've always loved metal, and it's kind of a question I actually get asked a lot by people, like, were you just brought into this band or was metal always your thing? I have been listening to metal, gateway metal bands at least, or metal since I was in primary school. So it's always been my thing. But I have a classical music background. So I studied, I was a classical voice student my whole life. I studied classical voice at university and I worked as a classical singer a little bit as well with Victorian opera for some time.
Yep.
So that's really my background musical training wise, but musical interest wise, I started off listening to a lot of bands like Cradle of Filth and Nightwish. I think they were really my gateway bands, and it was really cool to hear singers like me in heavy music.
Yeah.
So I really got into that as like a young teenager. And then I had a very brief stint into more stoner rock for a while, and I'm still pretty into that genre.
Yep.
I listen to a lot of metal and a broad range of metal, but I would say consistently my most listened to genre is doom, for sure, which is quite different to Luke's.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I tend to listen to, I guess, a lot faster, more extreme genres, like a lot of brutal death, lots of melodic death metal, lots and lots of melodic death metal.
Yeah.
And a fair bit of black metal and stuff like that, which is good because Ryan listens to quite a lot of black metal, so we have that bit of crossover. But then Ryan's also like big on just rock stuff. Like he's the biggest Oasis fan out there, sort of.
Yeah.
Ryan basically listens to really obscure black metal, particularly if it's like a one-man project.
Oh, yeah.
And the Who.
Yeah.
And the Who, basically.
Yeah.
It's good contrast.
Yeah, and Raph is like really 90s melodic death metal, I would say, largely is his background. And he played in a band that some people might recall from the 90s in Melbourne called N Plus Ultra.
Yeah.
So that's really, really his thing, I would say. He listens to a lot of stuff, but that's really his core musical influence, I would say.
Nice.
Yeah, a lot of thrashy stuff too.
Yeah. released the album, it was core 4 people.
Yep.
So when we wrote the album, and we were working with some guest artists. So we had a guest on extreme vocals, a guest on bass, and a guest on keys.
Yeah.
And our keys player has now joined the band as a full-time member. So we're currently 5.
Yep.
Full-time.
Okay, and do you still have the other 2 with you when you're going to be doing the live shows, or is it kind of recorded in the background? How does that all work?
So currently we don't have a permanent bass player.
Yeah.
And so we have that as essentially the performance of the album is in the backing track.
Yep.
And it gets sent out separately. And then for the kind of extreme vocals, we've had a couple of people who perform with us from time to time. Sometimes it's Axel, who recorded on the album.
Awesome.
Sometimes we have Johnny from Man on Stone.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nice.
Both really fun to work with, both great performers.
Yeah.
But
no,
just no permanent member.
With such complex music, I suppose it's kind of, you have to be creative and figure out the ways to approach it, right? If you want those things in, you've just got to find a way around it.
Yeah, absolutely.
How do you find as well, so with such a diverse group of people, how do you find that impacts the creative process?
I think it just means our music sounds the way it does. Like you can really, really hear. One of the things I love about our music is like every single instrument has a time to shine. I think like there's really key elements of every instrument throughout the music. So it's a true ensemble piece, what we do. And I think you can hear in the composition once you know this sort of background. And Raph also has quite a classical background. I think you can hear it all in the way the music has sort of turned out. So if we were to replace one band member, the sound would change a little bit because we wouldn't have that influence. So, I mean, that's my perspective. I don't know how you feel, Luke.
Yeah, no, I think, for example, Raph and I have fairly different but complementary kind of guitar writing styles.
Yeah.
So he has that classical guitar training and I'm just self-taught and just influenced by the music I grew up listening to. But Raph has got that kind of Spanish lilt to the stuff that he writes. And so blending those together is really fun.
Yeah. No, that's
awesome.
Yeah,
I absolutely think we'd be a totally different band if any of the members ended up being replaced, because Charlotte piano writing is very unique as well.
Yep.
Yeah, totally. She doesn't listen to metal at all. So Charlotte's our keys player.
Yep.
She totally isn't a metal person, but our band converted her. So when I sent her the album and said, hey, do you want to work on some keys parts? Because we had like a few bits and pieces throughout the album. And I thought, well, anything's going to sound better if we have someone who plays the instrument writing and recording it.
Yeah.
And she loved it and then wanted to join the band. So we have been a gateway band to her listening to metal.
That's amazing.
Which is kind of cool. So everything on the album, I think, despite maybe a couple of like brief moments in one of the tracks, is all recorded live. We don't have any, apart from like a couple of brief moments, there's nothing else programmed on the album, which I think is really cool. And a lot of the time people mention or refer to us as kind of having symphonic or in a symphonic category. And I don't know, there's no orchestra in our album. It's just got a really, really full sound without even having a lot of those symphonic elements at all.
Yeah.
Which I think is really unique also for the genre.
Yeah, definitely. So what has the band been doing leading up to this debut, gig-wise and other releases? So
we released a couple of singles, I think, was that during COVID?
Yes. Yeah, it was right in the middle of the first big lockdown.
Yep.
Yeah, we released a couple of singles. They're still in our Bandcamp and floating around, but we've sort of taken them down from a lot of streaming platforms because they're not really representative of the sound anymore. But we just wanted to get something out there so that we could start playing shows.
Yeah.
And that was really successful. So we ended up playing a residency with Hybrid Nightmares, I think 2022 or 2023. Yep. And that was really our first show with the current sound and the current lineup.
That would have been a really good, like, complementary gig, you guys together.
Yes. Yeah, we love playing.
It works well. They're really fun to play with.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. And that was really like that opportunity. We'll always be grateful for that opportunity because that really we realized in that gig that we had sort of cemented the sound that you will now hear on the album, but also people were really into it, and it was just such a boosting show for us to play. Being part of the lockdowns, it was sold out, so at the Bendigo, so it was really just one of the funnest shows we've played, and it was really helped to motivate us to think, yes, what we're doing is people like it, and it connects with people, and we've actually managed to pull it together kind of to create whatever this sound is now. And since then, we've just played a few shows here and there, depending on, we haven't gone out looking for anything, so just through people we know. We've played a couple of shows. Flesh God Apocalypse was our first international support, and that was an amazing experience. It was great to play a show at a different venue and a bigger venue.
Yeah, that would have been great.
Yes.
Spectacular.
Other than that, not a lot. We've kind of been focusing on the album. We wanted to write, record, and produce something that we were really, really proud of.
Yeah.
And then, we've just kind of been figuring out how to release it. We've had a bit of, Luke and I went on a fest quest this year to Europe to go to some festivals, so with some friends. So we've had a few personal things along the way, and we just sort of decided this gig came up on the 16th, and we thought we just have to release this thing, and that kind of kicked us into gear.
Yes. So let's talk about that then. So 16th of November, that is the release date for the album, but also the launch show. So you're doing it all in one.
Yeah.
Why not?
Except you've also done a little bit of a sneaky pre-release vinyl for some lucky folks, I think. Yes, which is really cool.
Yes, we did. We thought we would bring a few along to the Flesh God show, and I'm so glad we did, because we were actually able to sell quite a lot of merch that day, which helped us sort of fund some of the upcoming costs. So that was a really good call. So we have sold a few. There's a few floating around, but it hasn't been released anywhere yet.
Yeah.
So midnight on the 16th, it will be on all the streaming platforms and for physical copy.
Awesome. So the concept or the themes for this are really interesting as well. Would you like to tell us a little bit more about the whole concept of the fairy tale retellings and whatnot?
Sure. I feel like I'm stealing a lot of the conversation topics, but I can't throw this one onto Luke because I'm the one that writes
Definitely
the
not.
lyrics.
No, this is all you.
Well, it's all everyone. Really, we were sitting around kind of during the lockdown period in Melbourne, which obviously was really extensive. We caught up online really regularly just to stay in touch, and because we really like hanging out, but also to sort of continue momentum on some of our stuff. But often I think the conversation sort of descended into various different topics, not just music related. But we were thinking we really have to release something. We need to do something.
Yeah.
And we were sort of deciding, what do we want to do? What would be meaningful for us? And we thought the last thing that the world needs right now is some like political statement or some sort of piece on the human condition. We kind of didn't want to go down that pathway.
Yeah.
So what we really wanted to do was something that was utterly escapist. So even though we touch on a lot of those like really human themes, as things like opera and fairy tales do, they absolutely do, we wanted to do that through a really fantastical and escapist kind of framework of this sort of concept album. So we explored a few different things, and we also wanted to do something that was genuine to us. So we didn't want to go off creating some like Norse album where none of us actually identify with that heritage. We wanted to do something that's really authentic. So we thought about sort of the stories that we know and what we've grown up with, and also what our music lends itself to. So we thought a concept album based on these sort of Hans Christian Andersen tales. And we already had Winter. So one of the tracks on the album pre-existed sort of the decision to make this album. So we took that one, which was one of our favourite tracks, which is based on the Snow Queen, and based the concept around that. Of what I think, I think it really our music lends itself to that like highly narrative. Each song is kind of like a little journey, little mini adventure.
Yep.
9-minute adventure. So.
When taking from an existing source like books or stories, did you go into it with ideas of how you wanted to kind of twist them and make them your own, or was there a bit of a process behind that to make them yours?
I think we stuck with the concepts of the stories, so we kind of decided which stories we wanted to do, which stories we thought had a really great narrative arc that would suit our music, and then Raf and Luke really sat down and started working on riff ideas that brought to life different elements of those stories.
Yep.
But in terms of like lyrically and narratively, it's really close to the stories. In fact, in most of them, I've taken as much as I could directly from the text.
Yep.
So we haven't changed the story. We've just pulled out the parts, I guess, that we're going to tell in our retelling of the story.
Yeah.
And the music was really written to fit those different parts of the story, which I think has brought it all to life.
Awesome.
Personally, I think, yeah, it all really, really fits.
No, that's fantastic. And what was that writing and recording process like for you, especially again with such a diverse bunch of people?
Handballing to Luke on this one because he actually recorded and edited most of the album.
Awesome. This one's all yours then.
Yeah, so it's not a quick process.
Yeah.
There's a lot of back and forth, and we might trial out dozens of riffs for each song and go, does this fit? Where does it fit? If it does, what section is it good for? Do we just put it aside and find something else that works better? Does it just need something layered on top to make it work in the way we want it to? So there's a lot of trial and error and back and forth, and kind of, once we have an idea, run it past everyone else. Maybe not. It's a process and a half.
Yeah.
But it's fun, and it ends up producing what we think are pretty cool results.
Oh, it's great. Where did you guys actually do all the recording?
We recorded the drums at Bushido.
Yep.
With Troy McCosker, and he did the drum editing as well.
Yep.
And most of the rest of it was recorded at my studio in Kilmore.
Yeah, nice. Do you want to plug it a little?
Oh, Deaf and Discord Studios, yeah. And then we sent it off to be mixed and mastered by Carl Daniel Leiden in Sweden.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
So he has a pretty cool pedigree with Draconian and now my memory's failing. Marianne will remember who else he's been working with.
All of the things. Catatonia, In Morning. He does like a lot of stoner rock as well because that's his background. So that took a lot of consideration, I think. We really wanted somebody. I think when you move into melodic metal, and especially anything that even hints at symphonic, you can get kind of a really manufactured production sound.
Yep.
Which is amazing, like that really polished modern metal sound. I'm probably describing this really badly, Luke. But it's not what we wanted.
Yep.
Like we wanted a bit of that, definitely like a bit of that sound, but we wanted to make sure that the vocals and the drums in particular, all of those recorded elements captured a lot of the room sound and a lot of natural sound as well. If we're going to the effort of recording, for example, all the backing vocals, I recorded every single line. They're not programmed. So if we've gone to the effort of recording them all line by line, then I want it to sound like that.
Yeah.
So, and drum sound is really, really important to us. Our drummer had a really specific idea of what sound he wanted, and Luke obviously had a really specific creative idea for how he wanted the sound to end up. So I think the final result really balances that modern production sound with still that humanness, which I think is really common in doom metal, which I love, and elements that we love of respective genres as well. So I think it really balances the two elements quite well.
Very much so. I think that's a really good description, especially that balance. So we've obviously already mentioned the album's coming out on the 16th. There's the launch show. Would you like to share the details of the launch show with everyone? Let's promote it, get the word out.
Yeah, because I think it's going to be an awesome show. Like I'm so excited about it. Coming up to the end of the year, I can't think of a better way to celebrate the album, but also just the end of the year with this massive musical event we've got. It's a great lineup. It's not just our album launch, it's also Orpheus Omega, Carmeria, then we've got Witch Grinder as well, and then Vic K and Artifact. So it's a huge lineup, and it's just going to be a fun party, I think.
It's a big show. And I think all of those bands are going to balance really well together. That's going to be a lot of fun.
yeah, I'm
It's good
so
variety
excited.
too, right?
Yeah, definitely. No, that's awesome. So I would generally ask, how can people show their support? Where can they find you and all of those things? But I think the obvious things here for everyone are start by going and listening to the new album as soon as it comes out, and obviously go and have a look when you've got a lyric video going up soon and things like that. So go and check all those out. Pre-order a copy if you can. And if you're in Melbourne, or if you can get to Melbourne, go to that launch show, because that's going to be really, really fun. But is there anything you want to add in terms of how people can show their support, where they can find you, all that sort of stuff?
I think at this stage of like where we're at, like releasing our first album, it's such a tricky environment to release music in because there is so much music, like the volume of music. So firstly, I want to hear what people think. So if you follow us on socials and send us a message, we will reply. But secondly, just share it with people. So if you listen to the album and think, oh, this person is really going to love it, or maybe it's not my thing, but I know someone whose thing it is, please share it.
Yeah.
Whatever you can do to share and amplify will really, really help us. That's kind of, I think, the biggest thing when, you're releasing things for the first time.
Yeah, definitely.
No, I think this really is the big thing for us at the moment. We haven't actually thought beyond it, to be fair. We've started working on some new stuff, and then we've just parked everything. We just want to focus on the release, on really celebrating the work that goes into an album. Anyone who's a musician or has ever tried to complete one of these like long-term goals knows it's a lot of work, it's a lot of money, all of those things. I'm just so excited to release it. We've been sitting on this thing for a while, and I'm really proud of it. Like, I really love the songs. I think it's a really great album, and I hope other people do too, and that it really connects with some people. So, yeah, I'm just really, really excited to get it out there, to hear what people think, to play the show and have people there in front of my face, hopefully enjoying the set and getting into it. So, yeah, I just can't wait to hear what people have to say about the music, and, reviews as well. We haven't had any reviews on the album yet. We've got a few in the works, I hope.
Yep.
But no one, for example, has been able to tell us what genre they think we are. Like, so even that, like, I'm just really excited to see what people are going to say about the album and how they're going to talk about the performances, what they'll like, what they won't like, how they feel when they listen to the album, all of those things. I'm just really excited to release it and, sort of see what happens.
Awesome. I think that's wonderful. Thank you both again for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
And sinners, until next time, stay metal.